That was an old school behind the fucking auto parts counter Wayne joke.
Next time, give it loud for everybody for Anthony Eugenio. We're gonna have next time. Very funny. Wayne Russell, everybody.
Welcome to the Open Mic Pain with Anthony and Wayne podcast.
Why, hello, everybody. Well, welcome to an Open Mic Pain with Anthony and Wayne. And today we're doing a nice, awesome topic episode where we're going to talk about joke thieving and parallel thinking. And this got brought on because both of us had a couple parallel thinking incidents, and we thought it'd be interesting to talk about. My name's Anthony Eugenio, and I'm here with my co-host, Wayne Russell. How you doing, Wayne?
Pretty good. Nice rainy night here tonight, so no better time than to be talking about these sleazeball comics stealing from good ones.
Goddamn right. So, first, we want to give a quick definition on the difference between parallel thinking and stealing a joke. So, first, parallel thinking is what happens to every comic in the world, which is you come up with a premise that someone already thought of. You thought about it independently, you did not hear their joke, and you got somewhere in the same ballpark. They're very easy to distinguish between a parallel thinking incident and a joke thievery, because it's very unlikely that you will come up with the exact same premise and punchline as another comic. You might come up with the same premise, or you might come up with the same punchline, but you're most likely not going to come up with both of them in the same kind of order.
That happened to me with another local comic.
Yeah, I keep telling you that is not that doesn't count, because it wasn't a setup and punchline. It was a quick punchline that was easy, that would go with anybody.
Sure, fair enough.
You son of a bitch.
I'm going to bring it up later, though. I'm going to mention it.
Yes, mention your joke, and then in the comments, if any of you think that Albert Einstein would roll out of his grave and go, "That was so clever," about Wayne's joke, let me know. But I don't believe you if you do.
Oh,
so,
man.
Wayne, who do you think out there is not a parallel thinker, but a motherfucking joke thief?
So one that I don't have any hard evidence, but one of the first ones I ever heard of was Robin Williams. I remember hearing about him going to clubs and they'd have a special light when he was in the club so you wouldn't do your best bits, because what I hear about him was he loved to perform, but he hated to write. So he's definitely the first one I heard of, but the first one that was a huge deal for everybody, whether you were into stand-up comedy or not, was definitely Carlos Mencia.
Yeah, sure was. Quick note on Robin Williams. So he's a really interesting one out of these, because he is the only one out of everybody we're going to talk about today that I think admitted it. So Robin Williams was known to pay comics that he took jokes from after he had done the joke and been caught.
I actually didn't know that.
I saw it in a documentary. It's pretty cool.
That's the
because
best way
they
to
said
steal.
He just felt bad. Yeah, definitely. He's like, I bought it.
That's like
Everybody's got
walking
a
into
press.
a rich man's house and be like, "I'm going to steal your Rolex, but I'm going to leave you a $13,000 check."
I bet. Well, not that bad. But yeah, so Robin Williams did that. He just said he was very anxious when he got famous that he would go bombing and ruin his career. So that anxiety led him to lift other people's jokes. Fuck him still. But, is what it is.
You know what did ruin his career?
You mentioned. Oh, god damn, buddy. God damn, that was good. That was an old school behind the fucking auto parts counter Wayne joke. The one that makes the guy mopping look up and go, "What?" Gotta leave that in there. All right. So you mentioned Carlos Mencia.
You mean
Carlos Mencia? Yeah, exactly. Ned Holness. And Ned Holness is probably the biggest piece of shit on our list tonight. I would say pretty by far. So Carlos Mencia, very popular comic around 2005, 2004. He had the Mind of Mencia, and undoubtedly one of the best stand-up performers, I would say, of that generation. His
I
jokes were amazing.
say that.
The ones that he wrote.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that he was a fantastic performer. Like he commanded the stage. He commanded your attention. He had like lines like the DTD that everybody was doing. Um, I mean, to this point, I really don't know what he wrote and what he didn't, with the exception of a couple famous ones that he definitely stole. But he definitely had something about him that if he didn't do all that stuff, I feel like he would have still been kicking around these days.
Yeah, so Mencia is special on this list for a couple of reasons. One, he would not only steal, but he would go to headliners doing theaters around him, go up before them, and do about 2 hours, and bump them out of a headline show, which is quite impressive. And that he admits to this day, says that he earned it because of how many times that he got bumped. So kind of
Yeah,
fucked up.
that is really shitty because we're not at that stage yet. We're not even on booked gigs or anything at this point. But I mean, hell, we've been bumped at open mics, and that feels like shit. We've been ninth in line, and we ended up at 19th.
Could you imagine your
Uh,
own headlining show with your name on the
yeah,
marquee getting bumped on
yeah.
that?
So that was my point. I couldn't even imagine how that felt.
Yes. So, one fateful day in 2005, the biggest dick in comedy, Joe Rogan, walked on stage at the Comedy Store while Carlos was performing and lit him up about joke thieving, called him Carlos Menstelia. Carlos didn't know that Joe's friend Brian Redman was recording in the background and released the video online. And from there, Carlos Mencia's career has fallen down to a big pile of shit.
Do
Wayne,
you know? Do you know if he's done anything recently?
he tours all the time, still doing comedy to this
Does he?
day. Yeah, it's just for, like we might open for him someday, I imagine. We're going to be really nice if we do. but that's the kind of shot that he's got right now.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give a couple examples of jokes that he stole. That way you guys can research on your own to know that we're not throwing stones in a glass house. Because guess what, baby? We know our house is full of glass. We're going to talk about that shit later. So Carlos stole from two notable comics that I'll talk about. One was Bill Cosby, Wayne's favorite comic, and Ari Shafir. So Bill Cosby himself, he did a joke about a son getting trained by a father to be a football player. And the son goes through all of high school, and the dad's really, egging him on, buying him cleats, bringing him to practice, cheering for him, all that stuff. And the kid ends up winning the Super Bowl. And when he is talking to the camera, he says, "Thank you, Mom." And that really pisses off the dad. So that's a famous old Bill Cosby joke, and Mencia did it word for goddamn word.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that is a premise that I think anybody really could come up with. That makes sense, but he was pretty much spot on word for word.
That's the difference. So parallel thinking versus joke thieving, I can see someone coming up with that premise, just like you said, but to do it in the exact same way, same build up, same cadence, with the same punchline, unfortunately, he loses that argument there. So Ari Shafir had a joke that said Donald Trump. It wasn't Donald Trump. I'm sorry. At this time, I think it was George Bush. George Bush has been talking about putting up a border fence along. You see how that went. But we ended up doing that a couple different times. Border fence down the Mexican line to keep the Mexicans out. But have you thought about it, George? Who's going to build the wall? So that was the joke. Mencia did exact same joke again, to the chagrin of the Jew Hari Shavir, and
And it
that
probably
really sunk him.
it probably hit so well too because Ned had that whole Mexican flavor.
Yeah, I know. He just heard a Mexican joke, and he actually. So really, the last thing I'll say about Carlos, there's a beautiful documentary that any comic, if you haven't watched, first of all, fuck you. Second of all, go watch it. and it's called I Am Comic. You can find it, I think, on Amazon Prime. That documentary follows the life of a comic and an older comic trying to get back on the scene. Anyways, there's an interview with Carlos Mencia in it where he admits to stealing. He says he was being ironic, but he wasn't. He was telling the truth. And he said if you had a joke, he would take it, throw Mexican flavor on it, and make it his own. Remix it, he said. So that's the closest to a confession we'll get on him. Piece of shit net wholeness. So next comic after your is someone who I do not believe is a piece of shit. This is definitely a thief of a joke, but I leave the room of possibility that he genuinely didn't know that he took it. So this next comic is Dane Cook. What do you think of Dane Cook, Wayne?
I used to love Dane Cook. I think we mentioned this on a previous podcast, but he was like the comic. He was like the first comic that a lot of people my age heard that was like adult. You know, like he would say things that were like nobody ever talked about launching a cashew off your erection, but he did, and that was the first time I ever heard of anything like that. And he had a lot of funny things at the time, like the BK Lounge and like all that stuff, which it was just different when we were growing up.
And I also think we were about 12 or whatever in that range when he was popular, and that's going to help.
Yeah, I was like 15, 16, but I was also somewhat sheltered. But as I get older, I look back at some of his stuff. I actually had this conversation with a customer today. He said he knows that we've been doing stand-up, and he's like, hey, let me ask you a question. Whatever happened to Dane Cook? And this is what I said to him. I said just what I said. When we were younger, that was all taboo shit. Now as we go back and listen to it, like that's like 7th grade humor. And I think all of his fans just outgrew him. And I don't know that he evolved to keep them.
Well, he blew up on MySpace and, social media. He was one of the first comics to utilize that properly. So credit where credit's due. I know Dane's still touring. And again, I think he's not a piece of shit as much as Carlos Mencia is a piece of shit. However, he did steal a couple jokes. And this, we have a chain of custody on these jokes because they are done by the same person we're going to try to rip off later, and that's Louis C.K. So both Dane Cook and Louis C.K. are from Boston. And Dane opened for Louis countless millions of times because of where they developed. And so during the time that Louis was doing the jokes in question, Dane was opening for him. So he fucking heard him.
Yeah.
And I'll give you the jokes real quick. The one that I'll talk about only because it's really egregious is there was a joke about naming your kid. And Dane said, I want to name my kid like an animal noise. And he made I don't fucking know, an L. I remember the Louis more than the animal one.
I think it was an F. Oh, no, he had an R. Louis was F. Dane Cook was an R, I believe.
Yeah, a grrr. I think he's like, I'll name him grrr, like a Chewbacca noise, whatever. Yeah, and Louis was, I want to name my son like 40 Fs, like, go clean your room. And again, Dane Cook did that almost exact with that punchline in it, which takes us out of parallel thinking and into joke thieving.
Yeah.
But again, I don't want to harp too much on Dane Cook because he gets a lot of shit for being popular. A lot of comics hated him because, again, how popular he was. And I think that's loser mentality bullshit. He did what no one else was doing at the time, and he marketed the shit out of himself, and he marketed to the demographic age group that was using MySpace. And, he did good before his brother stole almost all of his money, and they had to start again. But he did it. Now, the third comic that we're going to discuss, I think we go back again to piece of shit.
I hate her for so many reasons, and this is a small portion of it.
Yes. Number one is the fucking leather special. God damn, we should review that. I think we should do an episode of our least favorite comedy specials of all time. Should we commit to that? I would love to do one on that.
Yeah, let's do that a little down the road because I'm going to have to watch a bunch again.
Yeah, I'm coming for you, Gringo Poppy. Bring a job.
if you want to actually review bad, maybe we do that. Maybe we review bad specials.
That's what I'm
So
saying.
we'll
That's what I.
both.
That's
No,
what I just
you said
fucking said.
no. You said our top. I thought you meant our top bad specials
No,
of all time.
I'm never going to recommend a consensus list. I just meant let's take a single
I
special.
mean, I will every time. Numbers don't lie. Fuck you. Just saying.
Noted.
Um,
Noted.
but yeah, I would 100%. I think that'd be a fun. Maybe once every couple months, we'll just pick a really shitty special, force ourselves to watch it, and then. Do we really want to shit on people though?
I want to shit on Gringo Poppy, not because of anything other than uh, that was such a piece of shit. Like he called it a special. He did 25 minutes, awful comedy, construction paper behind him. Like it's so like he wants us to say how bad it is. It's good for him to talk about how bad it is because it gets more views to him. But at the same time, it's like if we were in Saudi Arabia and someone was getting beheaded in a public square and someone was like, "Don't talk about it." It's like I have to. It's so bad. All right.
Yeah.
But we'll get you soon, Brendan. This is next is Amy Schumer. Amy Schumer, who you'll know from used to be good, then turned terrible comedy, and also Trainwreck, which I actually think is a good movie. You ever seen Trainwreck?
No.
Yeah, it's actually it's a comedian's movie. You know, it's pretty good.
I'll have to watch it, but no, I haven't seen it. I'm not a big movie person. There's so many awesome movies that I've never watched.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I love movies. I'm a cinephile. Okay. Don't isolate that noise, please. Okay, so Amy
That's
Schumer.
the first. That's we always have the noise in the beginning. That might be it.
Shit. So Amy Schumer. Oh fuck. Okay. So the egregious. So this is a particular case because she stole skits for her show, which she only gets partial blame for because she had writers, and she stole jokes. The main joke that she stole was a joke from Patrice O'Neill. He had one called Gorilla Mask, which was after you have deposited your load on a lady's face, you throw your pubes at her face and call it a gorilla mask.
Did he come up with that?
Yes, that's Patrice O'Neill.
I thought that was like an Urban Dictionary thing.
Yeah, that's how fucking iconic Patrice O'Neill is.
That's amazing. I gotta say, Justin might be right. He commented on our top 10 comedians, and he's like, Patrice O'Neill's not on there, and I was like, I love him, but I mean, for that alone, he should be probably number one.
Such a good joke. Yeah. Yeah, and I think we should do, if we ever do a consensus list again, I would like to do like top 10 club comics, because then you can get Patrice in, you can get David Talhire, and you can work, because that's a different breed. It really is.
Yeah,
it's like
we say it all the time. It is two different, it's almost like two different jobs. A theater comic and a club comic. It's two different types of entertainment.
Yeah, 100%. So, Amy Schumer's version of the joke of the gorilla mask was she does the same joke, but at the end she says, call it an Abraham Lincoln instead of a gorilla mask. But in principle, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Stolen. So we should say, too, there is one YouTube video that has joke thievery as their title, and they show some of the audio and video of what we're talking about. I don't know the name of it, but they just Google it. You'll fucking find it. You lazy pieces of shit. So that's it for the comics that we wanted to talk about, joke thieving. Now we want to talk about ourselves, because we have run into joke thieving, but in our own way, which we call parallel thinking. Me and Wayne wrote 2 jokes that we both really liked. Wayne performed his. I didn't make it to mine. And we unfortunately found out that a good old ginger named Louis C.K. already did them. You want to talk about yours first, Wayne?
Yeah, so I have seen a lot of Louis C.K., but I did not see this bit. So my joke was, talking about how I'm bald, which, as you can see if you're watching YouTube, I'm getting very bald, and how much it sucks. However, there's a silver lining. I can freely travel the Middle East without becoming the subject of a beheading video because there's nothing to grab onto. I did have a little part in there where I was going to say something like they would have to make one of those rope pot holders or whatever. I forget what they're called at this point, but I didn't end up doing that. But that was the joke. And Anthony let me know the next morning. You let me go the whole night thinking that was awesome, and which it was, but it was only because somebody else did it, and they did it better, and that was Louis C.K.
Yeah, he's got a really good one. Yeah, definitely.
He does have a really good one,
So
but it was
that's
essentially
his.
the same joke. It's
Yep, same joke. Pretty too close to use, but definitely the difference is you didn't have the exact same punchline and your setups were different, which is how we know that Wayne's not a piece of shit and he just had a parallel thinking moment. So I also, by the way, that was Louis C.K. 2017 was the special he did that on, and that's a good one. He's funny. God damn it, he's so funny. So my joke is also a Louis joke. It came from a true story. My brother was trying to buy a certain type of doll for his daughter, and they only had the darker doll. And he's like, "Yeah, I don't care. I'll get her the darker doll." And that went fine until my dad went over to the house and he saw the doll, and I wanted to see his reaction, and all he did was he went, "Huh," and that was it. So the whole joke I was gonna say from
knowing
it
your dad.
was,
That's the perfect. That's the perfect. That's so good.
it was racist, but it was subtle. Like it wasn't. He didn't say like, "What are you doing with that dog?" No, he just went, "Hmm," and he just squinted his eyes a little bit, and that was the subtle racist that he had. And Louis C.K. I found out before I did it had done something very similar on his SNL monologue. Fucking motherfucker, because I really like that premise because it was true. Like that happened actually. So I thought it'd be a good joke, but Louis had one way too similar.
Yeah, I got to say too. If you watched our top 10 consensus comedians, Louis was at the top, and you might be thinking, if he is your number one comedian, he was number one for you, number two for me. How do you not know this? Well, we don't necessarily we haven't necessarily watched everything, and even if you do, can you remember every single joke a comedian does?
No, and to be honest, I think that comics are always trying to bridge the gap to a joke, meaning something happens
Mm-hmm.
in your life and you're looking for the joke in it. And
It's
for
true.
me, on mine at least, I think it was a seeded parallel thinking, meaning I definitely saw that SNL monologue before. And when something in my real life happened, my brain automatically connected it to that line of humor because I've heard it before. I just hadn't remembered at the time. So that's a dangerous thing that happens to us comics every once in a while. That's why we got to stay diligent with each other, make sure no one else has done it, because there's only so much to fucking talk about in the world, right?
There is. So comedy's only getting harder as time goes on. Um,
Now, can we talk about the joke thieving kinda that happened? Not, you don't think it was a joke thief that happened to you, but someone did say a joke that had the exact same punchline as yours at the end of it, right? Do you want to talk about
yeah.
that?
So it definitely wasn't a joke thief. I had never seen this girl before. Um, so I do this joke about my grandfather's friend Paul, and he only had one arm. And I talk about how, which he never really did this, but I talk about how he tried to get a little handsy with me. So I thought it was funny, he's only got one hand, tried to get handsy, all that stuff. And he was a real person. And instead of changing his name, what I did was at the end of the joke, I say, if my grandfather or Paul ever heard me tell this joke, they'd be pissed. But they're both dead, so fuck it. Which is extremely easy to come up with. Um,
That's my argument. So we had a little bit of a not disagreement about this, but you were saying like when you first saw the joke that the girl did, which do you want to say real quick, her version of it?
Her version was almost the same thing about her dad, but instead of saying he's dead, fuck it, she said he's dead, so I'm free. So it was almost the same exact thing. But it's like I said, and like you're probably gonna say, it's a super easy thing to come up with for a dead person that you're talking shit about.
That was the conversation that we had with each other. Because at first you were like, "Do you think that she saw it? Do you think that she's doing it? Do you think I shouldn't do it?" That was the line of questioning that like the progression that you had of thought. And the whole time I was like, "No, that's fine." Like I just think that that's not the punchline to that bit. That's just a tag at the end of it, and it's a super easy tag that's going to be the first thought of anybody talking about a dead person if they're trying to do that line of bit. So if she had also had a guy with one arm in there, then we'd be putting her in the joke thief category.
Yeah,
But outside of that, is what it is on that joke. But
yeah.
I still like it.
And I'm gonna go on record saying I've seen this girl 2 times now. She is very funny. Um, I highly doubt she listens to this, but if you do, you probably never saw me do that. And if you ever do, because I still do it. And here's another thing I wanted to bring up. At what point, if you have something like that situation where you know that you didn't steal from her, you know she didn't steal from you, do you like? At what point do you not do the joke? Do you just go, okay, I'll let her do it?
If it's more intricate, so you have to be. If she's like, right, I have a joke about a one armed guy, and at the end, I say he dies. If you get into that territory, one, you've got to stop doing that joke, and you have to, odd that both of you have a one armed guy, blah blah blah. But for you to tell that story, which is predominantly completely different than hers, all about Paul, and at the end you have a throwaway tag, I believe you guys can both do that into oblivion if you want. Just different enough.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
But yeah,
Um,
so do you have anything else to say about joke thieving?
I don't. I don't. I'm sure maybe we can touch on this again because I'm sure it's going to happen again to us and to other professionals. And I think there's. I mean, there's definitely others. I think Theo Vaughn had an incident. Maybe we can do another part two where we talk about some other ones. But we might have to do a little
Yeah,
more research. But those are the most. Those are the most notable ones.
yeah, we'll do an
Notable.
honorable mention for Dave, which is a story that Theo Vaughn, show on FX that Theo Vaughn thought was ripping off his jokes from. And the only evidence I could ever find was the wooden shirt bit that they had in one episode. And Theo Vaughn talked about a guy who had sold wooden shirts on a Joe Rogan podcast. But I'm out on Theo on this one, actually. I love him, but I don't know what the hell he's talking about. But anyways, we've talked about joke thieving, pieces of shit, not pieces of shit again, and then us, probably two pieces of shit. So if you guys like that, please follow all of our shit that Wayne manages for us. And this has been another step in the quest for motherfucking laughs. Bye! I'm a cinephile.